Hey, Richie Smith from LensWizard.com, and we're in Photoshop today. And today's tutorial is going to be for a beginning photographer, what should or I should not be editing when it comes to a portrait of a person. So we have today, our example is model Danny Sturdivant, and as you can see, she's a teen model. And the reason I chose this image is because she does have some blemishes. She is a teen. All teens at some point have blemishes on their face, and that's why I chose this particular image for today. So if you're a new photographer and you're new to editing in Photoshop, Photoshop can be very intimidating in itself. But then once you're in Photoshop and you know what tools to use, I find that some photographers maybe go too far or they don't go far enough in their editing. Now, don't take my word as the holy grail in editing, but I have been around for a while and I have been doing a lot of retouching, and I just would like to show beginning photographers what they have open to them and maybe the direction they should head. You got to remember, it's all creative. It's up to you. So we have the model was shot on a gray background, and you can see other part of the studio over here. So obviously in the end this is going to be a crop. We have a beauty dish up here in the corner, and let's jump right in. So I have over here the background. This is the image straight out of camera with just a few Lightroom adjustments. I've lowered the contrast and I've increased the shadows a little bit in Lightroom. I then brought it over here into Photoshop. Now this image has already been edited, and that is this layer up here. If you look in the layers panel, it is a group, and if I can click on it and open it up, but we'll look at that later. So also just know I'm working with a Wacom pen and tablet, and I'm working with a trackball mouse. Now they're not required to do any of the stuff that I did, but they will make the trackball mouse that's your own preference. But the Wacom tablet and pen, I have an Intuos, and this will make your life a lot easier. But again, not required. But I will warn you that once you use a Wacom pen and tablet and get used to it, you'll never go back to using just a mouse. Okay, let's jump right in. We're going to look at our zoom down here in the corner, and we're going to hold the Alt key, and we're going to scroll, and that gives you your zoom. I like to come in around the basic numbers of 100% when I'm editing a face. If I hold my space bar down, I get my hand, and if I grab with my left click or with my pen, I can move this around. So Danny obviously has some blemishes right here. Let me get to my brush tool. Actually get to this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here just before we get started. I'm going to Control Shift N, make a blank layer. I'm going to call it Notes. And I'm on my brush tool, actually with my pencil tool, and I can write. Okay, so I'm just gonna, this is for just instructional purposes, but sometimes I will do something similar to this. I'll do some mapping notes prior to editing an image, just in case I walk away and I come back, I know where I left off. But if you do this, always remember you do it on its own layer. Don't ever write on your background layer. So we got some blemishes that need to be removed. I'm just going to make marks around these instead of right on them. There's something right there. She's got some dots right there. It's minimal. This looks like actually a highlight right there. Then we also have the stray hairs. Okay, there's stray hairs here, here, here. There's a blemish up there. She's a model, but nobody's perfect. There's no model that's perfect. Her face right now, I can tell you, I had the makeup artist put on some foundation and a minimal amount of makeup. I mean, she's a teen girl. We weren't going for glamour. We were just going for a portrait type thing. And we went and did several other looks during this shoot. But for this look, it was just kind of basic. And she, of course, had this beautiful headdress. Looking at the rest of her, we will, and you got to remember, that's the other thing. Don't just stay with the face. You can't just edit the face. I see that happen with some beginning photographers where they go in and they edit the face and they say, well, the arms look good. If you edit that skin on the face, like if you soften it, do something with it, you need to do something with this. Now, in her case, this is abnormal. It was extremely cold in the studio, and she had goosebumps, as you can see. Matter of fact, to the point she got so cold, she's just a tiny little thing. I had to get my assistant to run across the street and buy a blanket at the Walmart store just so we could keep her warm until we got the heat up and going in the studio. I might remove this little line here. This line I probably wouldn't remove, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Now, I'm not going to do the actual edits. We're going to look at the end result, but I'm not going to run you through the whole edits, at least not right now. Like that stray hair, that bothers me because it connects to that. This one bothers me. This one bothers me. Some of these up here might not bother me as much, but we'll see what I did, because it was actually several months ago that I edited this. Okay, so hold the Alt key, zoom out. Now we have the softbox in the corner. She was shot on a gray background. Here is shadows in the studio. So obviously at the end of this it's going to be a crop. But let's look and see what was it. Look at the final edit and see what I did do. So the final edit, here it is. And as you can see, I lightened her up a little bit. Let's turn it off again. I lightened her up a little bit. I smoothed out the skin a little bit. We removed some of the blemishes, and we also worked on the eyes. Now, I didn't talk about the eyes, but if you look, I put my infamous little, I'm going to turn this on and off toggle. I put a little bit of an eye kicker in there just to brighten the eyes up, and we worked on some sharpening. There was some sharpening done to this image at the end. So look over here, we took those hairs out. They're done. Actually, probably should have took that one, but that's getting very picky. Her skin, I could have went smoother on it. I didn't want to get too unnatural, but when I sharpened at the end, it kind of brought some of that detail back. It's not too bad. And what did I do here? I did leave the line in. I just softened it a little bit. So these are the things that you want to just kind of look for if you were doing a basic edit. So let's look at what the edit was. Now, I'm going to open up this group, and I was working with a smart object, so I could stack filters, and I'm going to do a whole tutorial on that. Working in a smart object so I could stack the filters. By working with a smart object, it lets me go back and if I want to change stuff. Now what I've done here, I've got master copy and master copy 2. That means I have made a copy of all this, reducing all the filters into one image. So if I turn this off, everything is pretty much the same. You don't see any difference. This is just a copy of this, but with all of this rasterized into it. And then up here on the top, I did a hue and saturation layer, and I probably did that for the tone of the skin. Let's just look and see what that does. Her skin's a little more yellow. You see that yellow that comes in? Let me zoom in on that. Oh, wrong one. So you can see I wanted to go a little to the cooler side, so I did it like that. So now going back to why I work with the smart object, I have two smart filters attached to this smart object, and what that does is it gives me the ability, let me just first step back and say, if I wanted to undo something in this image, I can go up here to history. Here's all the stuff that I've been doing with this image all the way back to when I opened it. Okay? But once I close this image, I will lose all of this history. So if I reopen it, this history is gone. But one of the things that I can do is if I work in a smart object and I attach smart filters to it, I can go back to those smart filters even today, a year from now, whenever, and I can re-edit them. So like if I wanted to go back to the sharpening, if I just double click on sharpening, it'll take it a second, well, maybe a few seconds, and there it opens up, and I can see what my settings were. This is a typical setting, actually maybe a little over sharpened, maybe a little bit. So if I said, you know what, I want to change that, I can either change it in there or I can just change opacity of it over here. Double click, and I know I'm getting off of my main topic of what we should and shouldn't edit, but I just like to, seeing as I have this right here, I give you a little tutorial. Now, Adobe could have made a better window, a bigger window I should say, but if you notice, if you move off of the window, you have a box, and if you move off of the window, you have a box, and if you zoom, or all you do is click, it'll give you that. And if you go up here, put your mouse, your cursor like this, and then left click and hold, and you can drag it and reduce that. And now it'll go in at the reduced level, but this one will have, and actually I noticed there's something I've changed right up here. I took a blemish away after the fact. So there you go. There's a basic what I should and shouldn't edit. I made some notes on top of it. Let's turn the notes off so we can see our final image. And then I know when I closed this out and I went back into Lightroom, I cropped out the stuff that I didn't want to have. And it was a beautiful image, and actually this image I believe is on it's in the very opening gallery at lenswizard.com. You'll see some of my favorite images from last year. You know, you'll see that first image of Nicole Gallagher with a headpiece. I'm partial to the headpieces, and actually because I make them, but you go to that lenswizard.com and you will see some of my favorite images from last year and previous years actually, and this is one of my favorite. I mean, she was just, the look she was given, and I maybe shot probably 20 or 30 shots of this, but there was one where she was just giving me this look. Of course she was freezing too. So okay everybody, lenswizard.com, recklesspixel.com. I'm also on all social media, but Instagram is where I like to hang out these days, so you can find me at Instagram/LensWizard, and that's LensWizard with a Z, L-E-N-Z. And you can also find me on Facebook.com/LensWizard, and Tumblr is LensWizard. Twitter is Richard Smith Jr. So check me out on social media. Follow me, I'll follow you back. And you ever have any questions or want just any advice on something, you can email me at rich@lenswizard.com. Okay everybody, have a great day.